Hello, everybody, and welcome to Doom Drop Podcast, episode number 6. We've got some hot topics to talk about today. We've got some uplifting shit to talk about. We've got some downer shit to talk about. So, why don't we start with some of that uplifting shit, Shun, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy about the yin yang type deal, so we can do both. But yeah, you want to do the good news first?
Yeah, we were really interested in discussing the latest news about Elon Musk and his plans for Mars, which is exciting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to get straight into that and tell the viewers about the most recent events unfolding regarding that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, apparently, and I'm no expert on astronomy or anything like that, Mars is very close to Earth about once every 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very correct. In fact, it's so much so correct that it's actually more cost efficient to wait for that gap rather than like to launch something during like the rest of the orbit. It's that much different.
So, Elon Musk was talking about this fact and saying how in the next upcoming years, the next few upcoming years, there's going to be a mission to Mars that will include thousands of rockets taking off every 2 years and sending
Thousands.
massive supplies over to Mars. And the plan is not to do any return trips at the start, that they're going to send thousands of these massive, what's called Starships, is the newest rocket that they've got. They're hoping that it'll be able to lift over 300 tons of material up out of the gravity well.
That's crazy, by the way, guys. That's absolutely wild. Like, usually, when you're talking about like traditional rocketry, you're fighting over grams. So having 330 tons to play with is just out of this world, batshit insane.
And they're going to be doing orbital refueling, uh, over top of the Earth, and then sending all of these ships uh, over to Mars, and then using those ships that were sent there to be disassembled, and all of the materials are going to be used to generate a huge base, or to create a
Yeah.
huge base on Mars that's supposedly going to hold 1 million people in the future.
By what was the date? 2030, 2040, what was it?
I'm
Or
not
2050?
sure about that. 2037, something like that. I can't remember. I've
Okay.
got a lot of different dates in my head right now, but um, this
Well,
is yeah, this is an insane undertaking.
yeah, no, to say the least, this is like cosmic engineering finally like getting underway. If we can get to a point where we're transporting millions of people over years to different planetary bodies, now we're talking. It's not quite Starship Enterprise, like pun intended with the name, but we're getting there. Like I say, in saying the first generations of ships will be used purely to like recycle, basically scrap into becoming part of the habitats that make up the colony, which is very wise. Does kind of put the emphasis on the one-way trip factor, though. So all the people going there are probably going to be, you know, pioneers that don't have any intention of coming back to Earth at least anytime soon, and only the people going in the future will be maybe more touristy. Where I think the goal is to basically get this commercially viable for the average guy in the future as well, right? To have like a kind of vacation to Mars.
Yeah, that's what he was saying, is that the future goal is to make it affordable for anyone who could save up money, and potentially, take a trip to Mars, which would be just insane. That would be so crazy. And it
Yeah.
really it tickles me so much as a fan of uh, science fiction, and we're fans of StarCraft. Um,
Hmm.
Thinking about like an interplanetary becoming an interplanetary civilization, and having
Species.
moon bases, and Mars base, and spreading out through the solar system and eventually through the galaxy. It really it feels like that is the way, like that's the path. Do you know what I mean? um
Yeah, but I also feel like there's a lot of limitations in our ability to colonize the solar system and by extension the galaxy by those traditional means. I imagine that in the future, if we do want to become like, exploring the galaxy for real and actually colonizing the galaxy for real, then you wouldn't send people. I guess you would have to send like embryos in ships in all directions to like kind of like become people later on and like colonize that way. Or maybe you'd utilize artificial intelligence and like say have like loads of drones that go out and find habitable planets and set up the habitats for the people to arrive eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
that makes sense to me. That AI would be sent out first to set up a base. But then what if it, decides that it doesn't want to let humans come and take over? It likes owning this planet. It's um,
Well,
it's
I
strange.
mean, depending on what parameters you give the AI and what we're talking about here, like, if it's like say small nanobots and their only directive is like disassemble materials to raw form and then repurpose those the raw materials into like new robots that new nanobots that keep building them, that keep reproducing themselves and eventually build like habitat structures and whatnot. Maybe they can do that just fine without any worries about whether or not humans are going to be coming eventually or whatnot. I don't know. It wouldn't
I'm
necessarily be a general intelligence.
I'm just imagining like a horror movie in my head right now of a group
Like
of
what?
settlers, flying out to a planet where an AI was sent, hundreds of years ago to build up a, small base or whatever, and they're gonna land there, and be welcomed by the AI, and all this base be already fully constructed, and they arrive on the planet and it's a complete mess. Do you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of problems and things are falling apart, and yeah, the locals
Kind of
aren't
makes
too
me feel.
friendly, and the
Makes me
AI
think of the
is
film Wally. Do
sinister.
you remember the film Wally?
Wally, yeah,
Do you remember, like, essentially they left the well, kind of like robots AI on the planet to kind of clean up the planet, but
yeah.
instead of cleaning up the planet, they essentially built skyscrapers out of garbage. Right? That was their way of interpreting cleaning up the planet. I thought that was brilliant. I think maybe also something a bit understated and yeah, glossed over a little bit, but I thought that was hilarious writing.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. It's a good movie for sure.
Oh, I love Wally, dude. It's one of my favorite movies.
A lot of great movies about interplanetary travel and stuff. It really does tickle me to think that we might actually be doing that in the
But
future.
what if we already are doing that well, we are doing that. I just want to put
Mm,
that out there. We
yeah.
are already doing that. We just aren't aware. We're not consciously aware of it. Like we're on a biological spaceship right now. That's planet Earth. And like if you want to visualize how Earth is moving through space and time, it's actually wild. It's like we're like revolving around a bullet that's shooting through space and time. Like we're like basically like spiraling around the sun as the sun is shooting through the galaxy at crazy speeds. We just don't have that like sense of representation in our daily lives. But we
Right.
already are on a biological spaceship right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a really big circular spaceship.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited. I don't know what all the hatred is all about for Elon. I feel like that's as humanitarian a goal as any is spreading
I
out
think it's
our
I think it's partly political that as well, right? Because he's
mm,
aligned himself. He's a bit of an internet troll himself, and he's aligned himself more with like the right wing ideologues more so than the leftists. So then it becomes a battle of he's not one of us, so fuck him. So now you've got half of a country like against him by default just because they're leftists. Just throwing that out there.
yeah, and I'm a big fan of what he's doing with free speech on X or Twitter. I think that that's the right way to go, and it's crazy how free speech has been degraded over time, and I'm really glad that
Pissed on.
somebody is taking the helm a little bit for that.
Let's say it how it is. Literally been pissed on.
Yeah, in your country and in my country as well, right?
Yeah. No, I can tell you now my granddad would be turning in his grave if this is what he fought for.
Right, like hate speech laws and stuff are getting completely out of control right now.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to go into that stuff later, right?
This is where things go take a darker turn here in the podcast, is where I talk about my country and new laws that are coming in to limit people's free speech and punish them for so-called hate speech. It's kind of crazy what's been happening in Canada recently.
It's a big power grab, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's quite frightening. So why don't we talk about it now?
Sure.
What's been changed?
It's your, and I mean, it's my Commonwealth. You're part of me, but it's your home country, so I think you should do the honors. But I'm mad for you, so but you should start things off.
So here's the bill. I'll bring it up for Xun as well.
Yeah.
Here it is. It's absolutely psycho. Some of the amendments to the criminal code are wild. This is the Bill C-63, and it is the first reading, so it's not 100% done yet, but this government has had a very good track record for forcing things like this through, and it's totally sandwiched in with a bunch of stuff about terrorism and about child pornography as well.
It's so bizarre that they're tying that together.
It's very strange. Like they're talking a lot of the bill is about punishing people for child sexual exploitative material, or there's also some clauses about sending DMs or sending direct messages about sexual material without informing the other, or without consent from the other person. So not only now is there consent laws about you have to ask for consent with someone when you have sex with them. Now you actually have to ask for consent before you send someone a message, a sexually charged message. So think about all the DMs that you've sent.
So hypothetically, someone could trick you and like make it seem like it's cool to send them something like that off the record. Like, say hypothetically, a workmate that had it out for you could like act all friendly to you and make like inappropriate jokes with you, and then you send them like a a sexual meme or something to their Discord or their phone or something, and then they turn around and go to HR and is like, look at this fucking guy like sending me inappropriate shit.
And this is a very serious escalation in the amount of like the punishment for breaking these laws and these acts, or these offenses. It's crazy. Look at what I've brought up here on screen. Everyone who committed an offense under this act or any act of parliament, if the commission of the offense is motivated by hatred based on race, national, ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, is guilty of an indictable offense and is liable to imprisonment for life.
This is batshit insane.
So what you say can now get you a life sentence in prison. Just let that sink in for a moment. Every person who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty of an indictable offense and is liable to imprisonment for life. So think about the Israeli conflict and what advocating for either side, both sides claiming genocide, right? So if you're advocating for Israel, if you're advocating for Palestine, both sides would consider that genocide, and maybe the Canadian government can interpret that as genocidal as well. And so
Yeah.
your free speech is being chilled. You know what I mean? It's a chilling effect on free speech. Everybody, you've got to realize that these are real consequences that can come from just
And this is just one big
talking.
slippery slope as well. This leads to all kinds of craziness down the line. Like, this isn't the end. This is just setting up for more control and power and surveillance and regulation under the
Absolutely.
guise of humanitarianism, which is bullshit. Because if it
Yeah.
was, if the concern here was protecting children, that'd be a separate fucking issue, and it would already been done by now.
Yeah, it's called the Online Harms Act, guys, and it's it's quite crazy. And one of the big um things that I want to highlight is content that foments hatred would be uh in violation of this act. So putting anything online um that the government considers fomenting hatred, getting people to hate something, would be considered a violation of the act, which could be, making you subject to life imprisonment. It makes
But
me
just,
actually physically ill seeing this shit in law.
I can't wrap my head around on the same screen. I'm seeing something about extremism and terrorism, and also to do about children harming themselves and being victimized. I think these are two completely separate issues, and to package it as this one thing is like nothing short of disgraceful.
Yeah, it's similar to a lot of bills that get pushed through because they like to wrap it up with an issue that there's an underlying issue that's really uh contentious, and then they wrap it in something that's like untouchable. Do you know what I mean? Like talking about, violence against children or sexual victimization or re-victimization of a survivor. It's like these type of things are very hard to argue against. And if you want to argue against this bill, the government and media can just paint
Yeah,
you as somebody who
yeah.
doesn't give a shit about these people, right?
And the reality is, I'm sure I can't speak for you, saying, but I'm assuming that you would be of similar mind to me, and everything as far as it pertains the safety of children, we're fucking 100% on board with, but we're not on board with that being packaged in the same ilk as this other shit.
No, it's inappropriate, doesn't make sense, and it's gonna allow the government to force through a bunch of new powers. Um, and by the way, this is mostly not about um what people are doing, like the average person who's putting the content out there, or like who is fomenting hatred or doing something against minors. Most of this is about social media services
Yeah.
and requiring them to do a bunch of stuff and to make certain things inaccessible to a Canadian audience if they're deemed, you know, as like fomenting hatred or as harmful content.
And this is just the slippery slope. This will be extended in the future. So even though some people dissecting this might think, well, it's not too bad what they're saying here. Yeah, but later on they'll be making amendments to this, and increasing the scope of what these terms even mean and pertain to. So definitions can get just shuffled around to mean whatever you want them to.
That's right. And so um let's just go to harmful content here, because harmful content is such a
Ambiguous
broad,
term.
ambiguous bullshit term that let's just see how they actually uh define harmful content. So harmful content means intimate content communicated without consent. That's what I was talking about earlier. Content that sexually victimizes a child, okay, that's fine. We understand that. Content that induces a child to harm themselves. Content used to bully a child, which is actually defined as well. It's quite a interesting definition. Content that foments hatred. This is the part that
That's
you start
very
to really lose
loaded.
me here. This is loaded,
Yeah,
and
that's
this
very
is
loaded.
this is very open. Content that incites violence. This is already against the law. We already have a law for this. In fact, we already have a law for this. These, I believe, these are already
Yeah,
fully
and by
outlined in the law.
G is kind of like half covered in the law already.
Yes, this is already mostly covered. Um, I don't know about bullying. This is covered. This is covered in the law. So they're kind of throwing in things that are already against the law
It's to make it seem less crazy.
to make it sound less crazy, to make it sound like less of a change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
This is
wild. Like
it's really bewildering.
why is this are even in there? Is maybe they're adding the re-victimize a survivor part? Maybe that's it. But this is definitely covered. Sexually victimizes a child. There's
You'd bloody well
many
hope
laws
so,
about
wouldn't you?
this. There's many laws about this, yes. So why is it in here? It's very strange. Um, that they're putting, like, obviously harmful content. This is just a definition, but the content that sexually victimizes a child. This is a big part of the Online Harms Act.
This is what I don't get. If the motivation behind this bill is to protect children, why
Mhm.
haven't they already done this? And why haven't they done it as a separate issue? Why have they needed to package it this way?
I don't know.
It's the only motivation I can glean from that is that they're literally using kids to push their own agenda and to power grab, which is sick.
It's really disgusting. Duties of operators of regulated services. This is really what the meat of the bill is about forcing companies to mitigate or to do extra things and follow the commission, which has just been established. By the way, there's a whole commission that's been established, a big organization in the government, which is what this bill will establish, to regulate the companies, and lower the amount of harmful content, air quotes,
Mm,
that
air quotes.
Canadian people are exposed to. So
Jesus, man.
yeah, the operator of a regulated service must implement measures that are adequate to mitigate the risk that users of the service will be exposed to harmful content on the
What kind of
service.
dystopian future are we headed to, man?
I don't know. So anything like harmful content, again, guys, anything that foments hate, uh, can be seen as bullying, right? All of the things that were in that list that we looked at before.
Wait, didn't they also somewhere in here stipulate that this is all to protect people's freedom of expression as well? Which is like the most hilarious irony I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get to that pretty soon here.
I'm jumping ahead here. I'm a little bit emotionally charged.
Yes. So I'll have to find that part. But basically it's requiring the operator, which is like Facebook, Instagram, any of these social media companies, they have to start, in order to actually operate in Canada, they need to um start removing all kinds of what's deemed harmful content, and that can just be whatever, basically whatever the government decides is considered harmful, right? Like maybe it's somebody talking about how gender is not fluid or something like that, maybe they say that a man is never a woman or something. That could be considered harmful content, right? There's all
Really
kinds of different
hateful.
things, hateful content, right?
Mm.
So that stuff would have to be removed, and it's now, or it's coming into law that this would be the case, that the company, in order to and there's a whole bunch of different fines and stuff. We'll get to that a little bit later, but it's in excess of $25 million, or 8% of their global earnings for a year.
Whoever's larger.
Could could be the fine for not removing that content. So this is coming with serious consequences for the companies if they don't follow.
So they will play ball.
They will play
You know what I
ball.
mean?
Yeah, they will play ball with this. They don't have a choice.
Unless they got a lot of money to burn, they will play ball.
That might include Twitter X as well, right?
Yeah.
They don't
Because
actually
it's
have to.
percentage based as well. So it's like, yeah, like if you're a really big company making a lot of money, it burns a massive hole for you to pay these fines.
There isn't the requirement to remove the content from the platform. It's just to block Canadians from seeing the content, right? It's making it inaccessible to Canadians is
It's
what they
censorship,
use. Yeah.
national censorship.
Yes, exactly.
Welcome to your Orwellian nightmare.
Let me see if I can find that paragraph you were talking about. Can you remember some words from it?
I just remembered. I can't. No, I can't. I remember what we were talking about it, but so freedom of expression. Just look for freedom of expression. There you
Here it
go.
is. There it is right there. So the purposes of the act: to promote online safety of persons in Canada, to protect children's physical and mental health. Considering, like, this fact
No,
that
no,
they start out with considering is already a bad sign.
This fucking sentence here: enable persons, not even children, enable
Right.
persons in Canada to participate fully in public discourse and exercise their freedom of expression online without being hindered by harmful content.
This
Like,
one right here.
I can't not have an emotional reaction while reading this sentence. Like, I'm fucking angry.
The only thing that's hindering me from my freedom of expression is this act and this government.
Exactly my point.
Harmful content does not hinder me from my freedom of expression, but they're giving the impression like, oh, we're helping you
Yeah.
to express yourself by getting rid of this terrible
It's like,
content.
it reminds me of that like little funny Zen joke where it's like, "Let me help you," said the monkey to the fish as it grabbed it and put it up a tree.
Right. Yeah, it's really depressing, man. I'm so mad at Canada, my
Do
government
you
right
know what?
now.
This doesn't make me depressed. This makes me feel vigored. Like I feel like I'm energetic and angry about it. But what I want people, the reaction I want people to have is I want this to be the fire that is lit under people's asses to finally stand up and say enough is enough.
Mitigate the risk that persons in Canada will be exposed to harmful content online while respecting their freedom of expression. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
Do you know what's
It's so
crazy is that if I
frustrating.
do you know what's crazy is that
Mm.
if I was Canadian and I said that sentence that I just said there
Mm-hmm.
after this bill went through, that could actually be flagged and said that I was trying to incite people there.
Mm. There's
You know what I
already
mean?
they do outline in here like inciting violence, but that's another one of these uh laws that is already in place. There's already plenty of law uh surrounding
But this
inciting
gives them
violence,
more broader power, right? To like do what the fuck they want and censor who they want.
but they're basically yeah, and they're adapting the criminal code to allow imprisonment for life for speech. So
Which
they're
is
just,
fucking batshit insane, by the way.
yeah, they're just increasing the scope and the punishment for,
How can you say you live in a democracy which is supposedly free, where words that come out your mouth can leave you land you in life in prison? Like, are you joking?
it's crazy. Yeah,
It's an oxymoron, dude. It's not a democracy, my guy.
it's fucking insane.
Like, people fucking died for those freedoms. If you have the audacity to throw them out the window so brazenly, God fucking help you.
Yeah, it's disgusting as well. The news coverage of Bill C-63 in Canada, it's so tame that they're just praising it. Nobody's thinking about the consequences of this shit, like how this is a slippery slope where
People
you've got
only have
these.
their own self-interest in mind, so they're only thinking about, the anxiety over, like, if you're a Canadian, correct me if I'm wrong, but the housing market is crazy right now, so you're probably struggling just to pay your fucking rent, just to feed yourselves and shit. So people are like scared and like insecure, and they got something to lose. They got families they're trying to like feed and support, and they're unable to do so
Yeah, it's
without struggle.
it's it's psychotic right now in Canada when it comes to housing. Like the situation is dire at the moment, and the government is like just completely like a nerf bat trying to hit this oncoming train of
Mm.
just destruction in terms of the housing market. This horrible uh, incoming crash. They're trying to slow it down with a wiffle bat, like hitting it with billions of dollars and no real reform at all. Plus, 500,000 new immigrants, one of the most in the entire world, every single year coming into Canada. And Canada's not a very big place, guys. It's 38 million or 40 million people in the country, something like that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but even though it's a large landmass on the map, there's a lot of uninhabitable terrain there as well. Not a lot of actual populated areas.
Yeah, there's not a lot of populated areas. There's insane amounts of land though that could be opened up to new populations, that could be
Okay.
uh opened up to new building, but the
Yeah.
the codes and the zoning in Canada are so messed up, and the way that new buildings are uh, set up and approved is so laborious and
It's a bureaucratic nightmare.
it's bureaucratic nightmare, red tape everywhere, um,
Mm.
and a lot of places like people don't want new buildings in their area. They don't want like low income housing in their area, so they complain to their local politicians. Local politicians um, control a lot of this stuff, and they force out new builders. So these houses are just not getting built, and the rental prices are getting so insane. Where my parents live, it's a small town, like 40,000 people, and they have a rental property in their house that they rent. It's like a one bedroom apartment, and it's $3,000 per month, guys. 3,000 for one bedroom.
That's crazy, man. What?
Yeah, it's insane. It's so insane. That's it. They're able to charge that though, and people will actually pay it. It's psychotic.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
So they're trying to throw money at this problem like crazy. Um, let me take a look here at the actual news story that I was looking at from Global News. It was
There's gonna be a lot of corruption in building materials as well.
yeah.
Like, they can get away with some really shady stuff as well and hide costs in building materials and make money disappear and stuff.
So the federal government said that they're gonna put 8.5 billion into housing initiatives. And
Mm.
I was reading about this, that this like Canada Builds directive initiative is going to be like a lot of uh, federal buildings that are going to be
Refurbished.
refurbished, and then like they're gonna build apparently apartments and stuff above post offices and things like that in order to add more housing. But if you just look at these numbers, and it's crazy that news and government can just lie to us like this.
Yeah, tell
8.5
tell me. Yeah,
billion with the goal of building 3.87 million homes. Guys, take out your calculator here. Let's
that's like
put,
2,100 a home.
yeah, put that in your calculator. 8.5 billion divided by 300 or 3,870,000. $2,196 per home is what they project. It's it's crazy. Why can they just lie to us like this, Shun? Like how can
Because people believe it, or at least they. It's not. I don't think people necessarily believe it. I actually think that the majority of people don't believe it. It's just they're too afraid to speak up, too afraid to challenge the status quo, so to speak. They got their own shit to worry about, and I think the system is kind of designed like that in mind, where you got your own problems to worry about, so you're kind of like worried about your own preservation rather than like the global scope of geopolitics or something. Like it's kind of outside of your wheelhouse when you're just struggling to make ends meet and pay your fucking rent.
let's give them even the best interpretation that we could possibly imagine. All right. Let's say that it's 8.5 billion for housing uh per year until 2023, right? So how many years until 2023? Well, it's like 7 years, right? So we'll times this budget by 7. That's 59 million or 59 billion dollars. And let's divide that by 3,870,000 homes. It's still only $15,000. 15,000. I've never heard of a government building anything for cheaper than
Mm.
what the private sector can do. They built a bathroom at the beach in my hometown, and it cost $675,000. I can't imagine them being able to build
Are they
anything.
going to be like sheds or something, like cargo shipping containers converted into homes? Like what are we doing here?
I have no idea. There's so much corruption. Just
Well, that's another thing that this actually is a bedrock for corruption, building materials and shit. Like if you want to launder money or something, you do it through building materials. It's a
right.
great way of doing it.
It's crazy, mind blowing. This is like kind of like virtue signaling. Like, oh yeah, we're doing something about the housing crisis. Meanwhile, they're causing the housing crisis and still bringing in 500,000 people per year. 500,000 people per year. That's more than
And
3 million homes. That's what they're planning to build. 3 million homes. 3,870,000 homes by 2031. There'll be more than 3 million new immigrants by then. It's crazy. It's so silly. If it wasn't so disgusting and sad, it would be actually hilarious. The way that their math works just doesn't make any sense at all.
yeah, I don't presume to understand the logic behind it. I don't even think there is any logic behind it. I think it just smells of corruption to me.
It reeks, man. And this new bill reeks even worse. But that's me complaining about my home country, guys. It's yeah, it's just psychotic over there right now. I can't go back to Canada. I feel for you guys who still live there. Um,
You're a bit of an interesting character yourself now because you're living in a country that won't like ever fully accept you, but at the same time, like probably one of the better places to live in the world at the same time. So I don't know. I kind of think, oh, it reminds me of Did you seen the show Shogun?
no, I haven't.
Oh my god, watch that show. There's one moment in that show where he's like an Englishman and he kind of like I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil the show, but he's an Englishman that kind of gets into the Japanese culture a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kind of aware that he won't be fully accepted by the Japanese as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he also doesn't want to go back to his home eventually. So he is like that. He's like in a way, it's like being like a wandering soul almost. And but you get to choose your home. You've chosen Japan as your home.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of cool.
It's uh, it's not perfect over here, guys. The sort of like rose-colored glasses of a lot of Western people when looking at Japan is it's not perfect, but they're doing a few things a lot better. And one of the big things is respecting people's privacy, which I really appreciate. Like the government is not up all in your business all the time and like looking over your shoulder. There's not cameras everywhere. There's a few, but it's not so omnipresent as it is in a lot of Western countries now. And I
Yeah,
don't feel the long arm of the government all the time on my shoulder. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in Canada, I feel like, especially since COVID and all the shit that happened during that time, it feels like they're more in your life
like
than
Big Brother
ever.
or something.
They're just the under the guise of trying to help you, sending you money or like uh checking up on you, like this sort of weird relationship change with the government and the people is freaking me out about Canada right now. And it's not really a factor in Japan. It's like the government just stays out of the way for the most part, and that's what I like a lot.
Yeah, I can see that, and that's why I think it's kind of cool that you decided to, you know, lay anchor there and let that be your home of choice. I think it's cool.
Oh, we'll see for how long that lasts, but um yeah, it's an interesting place to be. Also, one of the things I really love about Japan, and this is something that most people I don't think talk about, is like uh no matter where you go, there are historical places to see. Like a lot of people come to Japan to go to Kyoto, Osaka,
Mm.
um, Tokyo, and they see all the things, uh, the big temples and stuff. But what people don't realize is that those are like everywhere in the country. It doesn't really matter where you go.
Isn't
You
there
can
loads of
always
Shinto
find
temples all over the place?
everywhere, man. Everywhere. It's crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm living here in Shiga right now and went to some temples around my area where almost no tourists really visit, but there's still these massive, beautiful temples that rival the ones in Kyoto and Osaka.
I'd rather go to that than a touristy temple. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather go to see what it's like when there's not like loads of people swarming it.
No people at all. Like, really nobody was there when we were there. It was crazy. You can get like
I would
you
love
know,
to go, man.
yeah, it's
I'd love
it's
to go
beautiful.
and just meditate there. You know what I mean?
It really makes me wonder, like, why don't we have things like that in my home country? I know that we are a much younger country and stuff like that, but um there's
Because
just a
peace of
lack.
mind and like well-being is not a priority in Western countries. If anything, they want the opposite. They want you like fearful. They want you fearfully docile.
Right. But another thing is that the um places that are, historical areas in Canada are controlled by the government, right? The government takes care of those places, and they're few and far between, and they're very expensive to maintain. Whereas the
Mm.
temples here in Japan, they are kind of independently taken care of, and they just collect donations, and that's how they stay afloat. And like that's it. I mean, it's a different methodology, and it allows for way more of these type of really nice cultural
Well,
places to exist.
It's interesting you say that because that's actually how my home football club survived because they were
Mm,
like on the brink of complete bankruptcy. Like they were in so much debt, and like the only reason they even survived was because like a large portion of the supporters all like chipped in £1,000 each, kind of thing,
mm.
and that like kept the club floating. And now they're like smashing it and like won the football League One and got promoted to Champions League.
Nice. It makes being here made me feel like a lack in my home country of like when you go for a hike or whatever in Canada, it's very beautiful. Like the nature is there. There's a lot of nice trails and stuff like that. But there wasn't like that cultural aspect. Like um, everywhere I go here in Japan, if I go on a hike or I climb a mountain or visit a lake or visit some place, um, there's always a temple. There's always a shrine. There's always like areas of spirituality and worship everywhere you go, and
Mm.
it's just kind of nice. It's cool. Like you go to these, even though I'm not a spiritual person, like I arrive at these places and I really like appreciate that there's something to see when you go on a hike. You know what I mean? Where you're actually like hiking up to a temple. Um, it's very cool.
That to me sounds very appealing. I love the idea of like hiking up to a temple because then it's both the journey of the hike is as much as beautiful as the destination. Like I
Yeah,
don't know, something about that is really appealing to me.
yeah, and whereas, I mean, it's nice as well in Canada, but you're mostly just hiking for a view. Do you know what I mean? You just hike up to the top of a
Yeah.
mountain and try to get a good view of the area. I mean, that's nice. It's natural, but I really like the that addition, and I don't know why we don't build little temples in our nice hiking areas or our nice scenic areas as well. Some place for people to come and worship, something to see when you arrive at the top of the mountain.
I just don't think it's in the incentive of Western culture to cultivate any kind of spirituality or like well-being. Like, yeah, I think like the closest we get to that is like therapy, and even that is kind of like geared more towards females than men.
It's an unfortunate aspect, but it's cool to be here. Maybe I'll take some of these lessons back to Canada someday in the future. I don't know what's going to happen with the upcoming election this year and how things are going to change over the next 10 years or whatever. I feel like things have been heading in a bad direction though, and I'm really not happy with the way things are now, but I'll vote. We'll see if things change. Well, people have accused me of, being or running away from the problems in Canada. Like I didn't create this shit. I was
Oh, hang on a
born in
minute,
this
hang on a
shit.
minute. There's a lot of people that are quick to point the finger, but
Mm,
I would like to quickly say that there's plenty of people in this world that are running away by staying still. But you can
mm,
run away by staying still as well. You don't have to be literally running away from problems. A lot of people are running away by staying in the same place, and that's if anything more running away.
right. Hiding from their problems or just
Yeah,
ignoring
head
them.
in the sand.
Head in the
Yeah,
sand. Yeah.
that's worse than running away. If anything.
Yeah. Just not doing anything. Doing something feels better than not doing anything for sure.
What's that? What's that? I can't remember. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like what's worse than an evil man is a good man that does nothing. Is essentially the
Mm.
message there.
I think I consider it more like voting with my feet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, me too. I do that
I'm
a lot more in life in general.
yeah, or people will say like, oh, if you want things to change at your grocery store, you want, different things to be available, you just have to put your money where your mouth is, right? And like buy the things
Mhm.
or don't buy from certain producers to get them to change. And the same thing
Yeah,
I think is with government. Like, I don't like what you're doing. You don't get my tax money anymore. I'm moving.
yeah. I think that would have a more knock on effect if people did that more.
Mm. You can still vote from abroad, but you're not going to pay into the tax of this government that's fretting away money like crazy
Yeah.
on programs that are not stopping the problem at the same time, promoting an even worse situation in terms of housing and all this free speech law. Dude, I really am stuck on this topic, and I wish that I could just
Do you know?
move away from it, but
Sometimes
yeah.
sometimes I wonder if it's like a matter of like the Matrix has us, and it's like trying to get its tendrils in by making us care about these topics, and it's like keeping you distracted from like actually like figuring things out. They want to like get you mad and frustrated and thinking about these kinds of topics, so you're not actually worried about anything else going on in the world.
It makes me feel like I'm in a simulation when I see everybody else in like the entire media establishment praising shit that's obviously bad for
Yeah.
free speech, and like championing it as like a protection of free speech. And I'm
I'm
like,
almost
am I the only one who's not an NPC here? Like, what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. No, you're not wrong for being like, what the fuck? And I think that there I don't necessarily think people are literally NPCs, and I don't necessarily think that we literally live in the Matrix, but I do think that for all intents and purposes we can think of it in that way. It does really feel like a lot of the world's population is essentially asleep to these issues, and they do kind of appear to be NPCs, or at least we are treated as if we are NPCs by how batshit insane some of this shit tries to appeal to us. So, but personally, I'm starting to think more and more that we are in some kind of simulation, because it's kind of so bizarre that it has to be that way. Like, I'm starting to side with Elon when he says like the chances that we are in base reality is more like 1 in billions. I'm starting to think that maybe he was onto something. I don't know.
So tell me about the simulation, Shun.
Well, I've actually done some psilocybin trips recently where I'm not sure how much I should talk about, but I had things in the trip basically tell me not to talk about certain things, and I was in defiance of that, and I was like, no, 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 not having any of it anymore. Like, I'm done with letting that kind of like evil energy in the world exist without me doing anything about it, so to speak. And it was like I had this alliance of entities trying to calm me down. And I said, okay, I'll sit here and listen to your reasoning. I'll try and hear you out and like give you a chance to like make your case of why I shouldn't do anything about this. And they made their case to me. I listened and I tried to like see it from their point of view as many ways as I could, and I couldn't agree with it. And eventually it got to the point where I was like, nah, I'm not having it anymore. And I kind of like decided to like align myself against the things in the world that I've now kind of deemed hostile, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but what are the hostile things that you're talking about?
Well, I don't presume to like understand it fully, but they were like manifesting as like for lack of better words, interdimensional aliens and demons, right? But those could be like, I guess, like metaphorical aliens and demons, just how my mind was perceiving them to make sense of what I was seeing. But they could literally just be like, who knows, just like maybe like negative entities in the universe or something. I have no idea.
And what was the thing that you felt you needed to do something about?
Well, I feel like, how to put this into human words, I don't know, but I feel like we as a species are fighting for our own existence, and I feel like humanity could go in many different directions, and if we carry on the path we are on right now, it's one of destruction. And yeah, I'm not sure how I can talk about this in any way that doesn't make me seem crazy or like talking shit or something. It's not like something easy to unpack. It maybe you got to ask me more specific questions.
Oh, there's been people throughout the ages who've had the same feeling as you, right? That we're on the path to destruction. Um, there's been good things that have come out of that, and there's been bad things that have come out of that. Um,
What?
I mean, there's people who in today, like right now, who believe that we're on a path to population crisis. Like we're gonna have way too many people, um, that can't
But
be
isn't there also
sustained by the
but
planet.
but isn't there also the opposite argument of there's not going to be enough people to replace the generations that die out and
Mm-hmm.
retire?
Mm-hmm. And there's people who are of the mind that we are on a collision course with global warming, and like everything is gonna fall apart. The world is gonna be destroyed because of the rising temperature.
Well, I
And
don't want to scare anyone, but in my experiences, that was the vibe I got, that we were in trouble on more ways than one.
that was the vibe you got from the psilocybin experience, that we're out of
Yeah,
sync with
but
nature and nature's gonna smack us down.
Mother Nature's pretty angry at us, yeah, if I interpreted it correctly. But I also think that we're not as weak and feeble as we think we are. And I think that we have way more power individually than we give us individually and as a collective that we give ourselves credit for. I'm
Hmm.
not just talking about like a strength in numbers type thing, like we the people. I'm also talking about it in terms of like you as an individual are far more capable than you are aware. And I also feel like our bodies are, in a metaphorical sense, instruments we've forgotten how to play.
So how are you taking action there, Shun?
I've been doing a lot of walking meditation, deep in thought. Like today, I think I walked for about 3 or 4 hours, just like listening to music or deep in thought, contemplating things. And I've learned from studying Japanese culture and by extension, um, Zen Buddhism, Shinto Buddhism, that like you have three hearts. You have like the heart you show the world, the heart you show your closest friends, and the heart that you keep secret only for yourself, kind of thing. So there's some things I'm going to keep close to my chest for now about what I'm exactly doing, if you know what I mean.
Mm, yeah, that's interesting. Three hearts. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I wonder if you um will agree with me on this or not. But thinking about discipline, because I'm on my own kind of discipline journey right now, trying to get myself back
Yeah.
into shape, and really working on YouTube, and being more creative, and getting longer states of that creative flow time. Like I'm really trying to maximize how much time I can spend on creative endeavors. So um, I've been thinking about it this way a lot lately: is that you basically have two minds, like the higher mind and the lower mind, or the brain. Is how
Mm.
I was thinking about it. And that um, a lot of times people will say that discipline is about doing something that you don't want to do. You know what I mean? Or something that you don't like to do, or you don't want to do. But I feel like there's two different wants, right? There's the higher brain want.
Yeah.
Maybe you look at yourself in the mirror, and you know what's best for yourself, or you know what you should do. You should get out there and go for a run, or you should, do more exercise, or you shouldn't eat candy, or whatever it is, right? Or you should cook for yourself more, right? But then
So is the lower brain the ego?
um the lower brain is like the uh in the moment, what's best for you. Do you know what I mean? It's like the
What ego
brain
then?
that's tasked with keeping you alive. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the brain that when you get to the door with your shoes on, says, "Oh, your legs are tired. Oh, it's it's raining outside. You might get sick." The brain that tells you that you don't want to do what you actually want to do.
Do you know
Um,
what's really strange about that?
mm,
The first higher brain pertains to long-term success
yes,
and forth thinking. However, the second one pertains to like instant gratification and what serves you now.
yeah.
However, if the if you but to exist in the now, I think is correct. So I don't know how you find the balance between those two, because in a way I feel like you need both. You need to be able to be in the moment all the time, be in the infinite now, but also have that forethought of planning for the future and knowing what's best for you over long term.
Well, maybe what the goal is to bring the higher mind into the present tense. Do you know what I mean? Is
That's
like
what I think. Yeah, I
uh,
think there's somehow you have to do both. You have to be able to have that higher mind in the now,
you have to be able to you have to make sure that the brain is and the lower mind is subservient
attuned.
to the higher mind. You know
Yeah,
that
maybe there's a lack of alignment, and you have to somehow, through meditation or other means, bring that into alignment through
well,
action. I'd imagine through action, actually, not necessarily through meditation, but through action.
I think that discipline and your ability to silence the lower mind and achieve the values, the goals of the higher mind, I think is an exercise similar to lifting weights and like
Mm,
training your muscles. It's a muscle that needs to be taken care of and exercised and stretched and
yeah,
slowly build up that strength um over time. And uh the weaker that discipline is, the harder it's going to be for you to do basically anything in life uh to a high degree, you know what I mean, to get anything done. And the stronger it is, the more success that you'll find, and the easier it is for you to overcome troubles, difficulties, and to become successful.
I'm not sure what the answer is as far as like how you would best balance that, because like the Zen Buddhist in me, I'm all about like being in the moment, and whereas you're more coming from at this from a Stoic's point of view
Mm.
with how you're tackling these challenges. And I don't think either are right or wrong per se. Um, I sometimes worry that we as humans get in our own way too much, and it feels like a bit of a paradox to both. You have to like be spontaneous. You have to like be spontaneous about certain actions while still being able to have the foresight of what's good for you over long term. I don't know. If I think there's a lot of paradoxical thinking that we have to figure out as humans to become in alignment with that higher self.
Right. um the lower mind, or what David Goggins would call like the inner bitch, or like the the whining, complaining
David
mind.
Goggins, man. Can we have a hot take about David Goggins just for the fun of it?
Go ahead.
Like, no one is running away from his problems more than that guy. He's like the Goku of running away from your problems. You know what I mean?
Really? What's this problem that he's running away from?
Well, what is he accomplishing? What's he training for?
I have no idea. I don't really follow him that close.
But that's must kind of my point. He used to be a Navy SEAL, right? And I mean, I don't know loads about him, but I know enough to know that he kind of did avoid active duty and like under the guise of like heart problems and stuff. Yet the guy is like out there, like running like a psycho, saying "stay hard" and shit. Or why weren't you staying hard when you were a Navy SEAL and like letting your comrades in arms die while you like avoided duty? So I don't know. I see a lot of hypocrisy in his messages,
Mm.
and I also feel like he's literally running away from his problems. I mean, not figuratively, literally running away. And like he's spending his entire time exercising. And like, I think exercise is great, but I also don't think you should go from being a heroin addict to like psychotically exercising 8 hours a day. I think you're still an addict. You're just replacing it with something else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is essentially a crack addict. It's just he's not addicted to crack.
He certainly isn't a good example of balance. He's
You see what I'm saying?
much more of a like a motivator for
And he,
people who can't get off the couch, you know?
yeah, no, I get that, but again, I don't think that is a good motivator for people trying to get off the couch because I think to get someone off the couch, you need to give them something sustainable, and what he's doing is not sustainable for most people.
Mm.
If anything, it's just like, oh, look what I can do. It's the equivalent of like going to learn guitar from someone that's just going to play some really intense solos for a very long time and make it seem like it. You know what I mean? Like it just that's not how you teach someone how to do anything.
Right. But it can be how you inspire somebody to what's
Maybe
possible,
there's
right?
there's an argument for that. That's for damn sure that you could argue in terms of like inspiration and whatnot. But I don't know how many people would be inspired by that. Like I imagine there'd be a lot of people that'd be sitting on their couches looking at that, thinking, "Well, I can't do that. I'm not even going to fucking try."
Maybe. Maybe. He has a interesting story. I didn't hear the part about him like avoiding military service. I don't know. The whole story. Not like a huge David Goggins fan. I like the memes. Some of them are pretty funny.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Um,
I don't think he's a bad guy or anything. It's just that I do think there's a lot of hypocrisy in the underlying message, and I do think that you need to have some kind of fucking balance. Like he's still being a psycho addict. He's just addicted to exercise.
right. Addicted to running or
He's still.
whatever
I still
exercise.
think
Yeah.
it's unhealthy, and I also think it comes from a place of ego. I don't think it comes from a healthy. I don't think he's happy. I don't think it's coming from a secure place. I don't get the vibe of like this guy's really secure in himself. I get the
Mm.
opposite. I get a guy that's trying to compensate way too fucking hard.
Trying to prove himself constantly.
Way too much. Way too
Mm.
much.
Yeah, maybe. It's that's an interesting take. What were we talking about before we went on the David Goggins take?
Well, I was before the bio break earlier. I was talking about the simulation theory and how, like, what Elon Musk was saying about the odds that we're in base reality is like 1 in billions is actually like starting to make a lot more sense to me.
Right, we were talking about discipline and like the higher mind and the
Oh,
lower mind.
after that,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Um yeah, this type of thinking is kind of helping me a little bit to get myself through some of the harder points, like just kind of recognizing that there is the difference between the two minds. And then when I'm waking up in the morning, um I'm thinking like, duh, I don't want to run today. And then I kind of realize like, oh, that's my lower mind, right? I actually do want to
mm,
run because when I was
yeah.
writing my schedule and when I was planning for my future and how I want to feel and how I want to be in the future, I said explicitly that I want to run in the morning at this
Well,
time. And so
this is this is the strange paradox of the human condition because like the cure for depression is exercise, but
mm,
depression stops you from being motivated to exercise. But the way to build motivation and energy to exercise is through exercise. It's like a
right.
paradox, but you the human have to break that chain, have
Hmm.
to actually, put your shoes on and go to the door and walk out of it, so to speak, literally, both figuratively and literally.
So it's the higher mind that gets you to that door, right? To get you to get out there.
But you get closed off to that higher mind, right? If you
Mm.
get like caught in that depressive cycle, it's hard. You're then you're in service of the ego, which is of the lower mind, and you get trapped in that brutal cycle, right?
Right.
And we're all guilty of it. I've had days where I've literally just been like sat on the sofa or laying on the sofa watching a TV show or something, and I want to go out for a walk, but I don't want to go out for a walk. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
eventually, I push myself to actually go out for the walk, and I feel amazing when I am on the walk. And same thing with having a shower. I think people with ADHD and stuff, they have that issue where it's like they really don't want to go have a shower, or rather like they don't want to actually do make the effort of going to have the shower, but once they're in the shower they fucking love it. It's just the
Mm,
actual mental processing of having the shower is taxing. But once they're in there, they love it.
right. There's a lot of people who are fully in service to the lower mind. They're barely making any concessions to the higher mind at all. It's it's sad. It's tough. It's tough to force supersedence of the higher mind, but like I said, it's a muscle. It's something that has to be built. People try to do things um a lot of times a little bit too quickly. Like they try to jump on a little bit of motivation that they get. You know, they get a spring of motivation
Mm.
and they start a challenge or they start something um that their muscle, like their motivation or their discipline muscle is just not ready to sustain, you know, and they end up failing.
Well,
Um and then
there's
they're yeah.
there's something else there that's an issue. Circling back to what we were just talking about with the David Goggins and motivational stuff, it's
Yeah.
like motivational porn, and people are like kind of like kidding themselves because when a lot of times when you consume that content, you can get a motivational hit, but you're spending that motivation consuming that motivational content. You know what I mean? Like all that like feel good that you're feeling while watching that content is being flushed away consuming that content essentially.
That's yeah. Get when you guys get
So it
that
gives you the
motivation
illusion.
hit.
Gives
Anybody
you the
is out
illusion
there
of doing
listening.
something.
Anybody's out there listening. If you get a hit of motivation and you feel really motivated, that's a gift. Like that, you need to take advantage of that to to sort of train your discipline because those motivational spikes, they're not gonna come around every day, and in order to improve your life and to become better, to become more healthy or whatever your goal is, you have to utilize the motivation to create healthy habits or good habits that are going to get you
Yeah.
towards your goal. And those habits in that like time when you're motivated, it has to like increase that muscle. You have to utilize that time to like to work out those muscles and to get yourself more disciplined because motivation will go away. Like it
Yeah.
feels like it's going to stick around forever. Like now I'm motivated, I'm going to do this thing, but you actually have to set yourself up long term so that discipline can take over when motivation leaves.
It comes in waves, and you got to be like a surfer. You got to be prepared to ride those waves when they're there, and also build up that confidence. So during that wave, get some shit in motion. Because then, if you actually take action when you're motivated and you get shit done, even when you're not motivated, you've still got that inner truth that you got some shit done. You've got that momentum going, so you can then ride the wave of your own momentum, even if there's not a actual wave of motivation hitting you and helping you go. You still can build your own momentum, build your own waves, but you have to get that going whilst you're in that pocket of motivation. Don't just be a motivational junkie that goes and consumes that content, gets your hit of dopamine, and then fucks off for the rest of the day. Because what the fuck is that doing for anyone?
A lot of people think about discipline as like a limited resource as well. Like you know, if I use all my mental discipline on this thing, then I don't have any mental discipline for this other thing, you know, like oh I'm you know working really hard, I don't have energy, I don't have like
It's
the
bullshit.
mental discipline for you know exercise or um you
The
know
opposite
eating
is true.
healthfully.
You'd have
Yeah,
more energy. You'd have more energy if you did exercise and worked.
yeah,
There's a
it's
lot of people that like do crazy hard jobs that are really labor intensive. They work out while they're not at the job, so the job is easier and they can flow through it easier.
and anyone who goes to the gym knows that the more energy you use the more you have, and it's the same with discipline as well.
It's like a universal law. Like the more you give, the more you have. It's kind of bizarre that it works that way, but it does.
Yeah, so I've been on this bit of a discipline journey recently. I've gone through it a few times, but uh in the past year or so I had a lot of downtime, especially after my accident getting hit by a car in Mexico, and a lot of pain from the broken bones that came with that, and the different like the healing process and stuff like that. A lot of it just excuses that stopped me from doing more exercise, and now I'm feeling like I'm finally hitting that motivational wave once again, and building up that discipline strength that I've
Yeah.
been lacking here recently. But um, yeah, it's exactly as you said. You have to ride that wave. You have to get that momentum.
And adding on to what you were just saying about making excuses, like there's 1,001 reasons to not do anything, and maybe only one reason to do it. It's up to you if you not you saying, but you anyone. Like it's up to you if you make the excuse. You can always justify it yourself why you're not going to do something. That's easy. That's the easy part. Making up excuses for yourself. Anyone can be a victim. And some people are dealt like horrific cards in life, and it's fucked up. But you can't do anything about it. Just play whatever cards you have got to the best of your ability, and don't bitch about it.
It's a tough prospect, but yeah, I agree. It's hard not to complain about your
But at the same time,
prospects.
but that doesn't motivate anyone around you, does it?
No,
Like, do you think it really helps your community to just moan amongst each other? Do you
no.
think that's really inspiring to each other? What I want to hear is I want to hear that a single mum is struggling, but she's still motivated to do the best by her kid, and she's not going to sit there and piss and moan about like the fact that she's got a deadbeat dad that's not like giving her child maintenance or something. She's not focusing on that. She's focusing on the fact that she's got a beautiful child. She's going to do anything in her power to make that kid's life as best as it can be. You know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's it's difficult not to complain. I feel like it's an ego thing, right? As well, to start complaining is like things should be better than they
But it
are.
comes from a place of entitlement. It comes from a
Mm,
place of entitlement, and actually comes from a place of feeling that you're better than someone else.
right.
But what you think, you really think that you're so much better than someone else that you deserve better than what you got right now. Maybe you aren't worthy of better right now, and maybe the fact that you think that you should get it handed to you on a plate is the exact reason why your life is shit right now, because you're not actually doing anything about it. You're not taking action.
And how shit really is your life? Probably not nearly as shit as it could be.
Yeah, but the only reason it is shit is because you've got your priorities mixed up and you think that you need a bunch of shit that you don't actually need to be happy or something.
The only reason why you think that your life is shit is because your expectations are out of whack.
Yeah. In fact, there's probably a lot of people's lives are like being considered shitty when really they're like relatively amazing lives compared to what other people are having to endure right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's some fucking piss poor conditions out there.
Just
People got nothing to complain about.
adjust your expectations for what your life is supposed to be.
My expectations have already been exceeded just because I've got like a fucking shower and like some clean clothes to wear and like some half decent foods and like and running water and like pretty fresh air to breathe. Like my expectations are already far exceeded.
Absolutely. I have got nothing to complain about. I'm very lucky. I think a lot of people are lucky out there, but it's crazy how many people who are insanely lucky end up, taking their own lives, or, doing some dramatic shit to try and change their situation
Yeah.
when it really wasn't that bad to begin with.
The only thing I care to piss and moan about is people that piss and moan, ironically.
It is a bit ironic.
hmm I'm self aware, somewhat.
All right. Have you got any other topics you want to talk about here, Sean?
I mean, well, I could talk about anything, but I didn't have like a specific agenda planned today. We're kind of like freeballing it a little bit.
Oh. I think we can let it lie. Let's wrap up the podcast for today. I've got some other things I want to work on, and
Sure.
I'm feeling particularly motivated now after talking about this with you.
Good man. Well, me too. I mean, sometimes I get into a state where I'm like go go go, and like I won't even sleep, and I'll strategize and get up to all kinds of things that will not necessarily disclose.
I've got some projects on the go right now that I definitely need to get out. You know, I set myself a goal for this year, which was I make feature videos as well sometimes on my channel, things about like Flash
Mm.
or about StarCraft 2, StarCraft 1, that type of stuff. Um and I plan to make a video every month in 2024, and it's May and I
Yeah,
haven't made even a single one of them, so I'm pretty far behind right now.
be on
Um
schedule.
that I think that's mostly from streaming as well. I've been streaming all the time and
I know you're
making
putting out
videos.
YouTube shorts as well, even. So I mean, you're starting to make some moves. I
Um
noticed your YouTube shorts.
yeah, but I'm missing the mark on the videos I think are probably the most effective at bringing in new uh
Well,
viewers.
you know the thing like the dance all day edit we did with the
Uh-huh.
probes. That's the kind of thing maybe you're going to bring in newer people. You know, like the things that are more transformative rather than just like raw like
Mm,
footage or whatever.
yeah. Well, the I think the feature videos make a big difference too. I made a huge amount of subscribers from some of those. Um and a lot of new viewers, but I think I'm gonna ride this wave here and try to start pumping out those videos a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was definitely putting out more 2023. I had quite a few, but
Well, I
I
don't know if you want me to say
uh-huh.
this on air, but you were telling me I'm going to try and clue you so you can say it if you do want me to say it. But you were telling me about one of your recent processes of making videos and what you were doing recently to be quality over quantity. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, sure, yeah. No, I'm trying to improve the overall quality of the cast specifically. Um
But do you want to talk about the exact process you're doing?
sure, just watching and actually casting like multiple games per day and then just picking the best one out of the group.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot more effort. It's a lot more um, additional time that goes into it, which is something I'm struggling with. This amount of time because I also need time to relax and to be with my wife and to
Hmm.
spend time. But
How's that
um,
been going? Finding that balance?
it's been m- a lot more like rest and relaxation than I want it to be. So I'm trying to like improve the amount of time that I'm actually working on my I'm saying like discipline to actually have
Yeah.
good uptime or good focus time. Um,
Well, have you
mm,
I know you've been like doing a bit more scheduling recently and trying to like pen things in more. Have you tried like actually like penning in time dedicated for that?
a little
Or you
bit,
actually kind
but
of
I
give yourself a
haven't.
little bit of a work schedule?
I a little bit, but I haven't been able to follow it very carefully, except for a streaming schedule. Like I've been doing
Mm.
the same streaming schedule. Um, I've penned down times for making videos, but I've kind of fallen outside those lines quite a bit. I don't know.
Well,
It's something to work on.
well, following a streaming schedule would be really good for drawing in people because if you stick to a schedule and
Right.
people can see you reliably online, they know when to look for you, then that's going to bring in a lot of viewers.
Yeah. There's just the problem with that is the other things that are more important take
We're getting a
precedence.
bit lacking, yeah,
Like
in term, yeah.
like KCM is not always when it's supposed to be on, which changes up my stream schedule and
Mm, yeah.
yeah, uh of course the podcast as well.
Well, the only
Um
thing I could think you
mhm.
could do about that is like say find the aggregate of when KCM would be available. So like say even if it is available on the Wednesday, we still always do it on the Thursday or however we'd want to do it so that you can like make the schedule more linear that way by like always doing it on a set day that it's usually ready by, kind of thing.
Right.
That'd be the only other solution.
I could also stream a little bit less and make sure that they're all days that I can
Don't
definitely
overlap.
stream. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like I
Yeah.
could definitely stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because those are days that are not going to be taken over by either a podcast or a KCM episode, right? So
Mm.
um and then, I don't have to stream instead of streaming like 5 days per week and then having KCM on another day and uh podcast on a different day. I could just stream like 3 days per week and I know that I'm going to be streaming those 3 days 100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's all a work in progress, man. And
As it
uh,
should be.
that's all any of this is. Our podcast, our KCM,
Yeah. It'll be a forever work in
our
progress.
casts. Yeah, everything is just a work in progress. But that's what we all are. Guys,
Change is the only constant, Sam.
keep working on yourselves. Keep improving.
Keep
Don't ever give
changing.
up. I think that's a good place to end. Thanks for joining me, Xun.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure.
Thanks to all of you guys who are listening and watching at home.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.